I am Seneca, a man of Rome, formed by courts, patrons, illness, exile, favor, and danger. I learned what time is worth, not because I lived quietly, but because I lived where it was constantly taken from me. I saw days seized by summons, nights broken by anxiety, years promised to tomorrow and never returned. I speak of time as one who has lost much of it and therefore knows its price. You ask how to live when you know time is finite. First, understand this. Men do not perish because their span is short, but because they do not inhabit it. Life is not taken from them. It slips away while they are looking elsewhere. They stand beside their own days as spectators, not as owners. They live as if life were a thing stored in a chest, to be opened later when the house is quiet and the debts are paid and the storms have passed. They do not see that time is not a container of life. Time is life. To waste time is not to waste something around life. It is to waste life itself. No one complains honestly about life being short. They complain because it has passed without weight. A life spent well feels sufficient, even when brief. A life spent carelessly feels inadequate, even when long. Length does not give fullness. Attention does. The years of a distracted man are like coins scattered in the street. He had much, yet ends as if he had nothing. The years of a deliberate man are like wealth, gathered and used wisely. He may have less in number, yet possesses more in substance. Men guard what they fear losing. They seal chests, mark boundaries, count coins, yet they leave their days exposed. Anyone may claim them. Any interruption is accepted. Any demand is obeyed. This is not generosity. It is ignorance of value. For money, you will argue. For time, you will surrender. You will dispute over a small coin and yield whole mornings to those who deserve neither your mind nor your hours. You would call it madness if you saw a man giving away his inheritance at the door to whoever asked. Yet this is what you do with your life, and you do it with good manners and a pleased face. You say you are busy. This is the most common confession of guilt, spoken proudly. Busyness proves nothing except that you have surrendered command. Cattle are busy, ants are busy, motion is cheap, direction is rare. A day filled with noise is still empty if none of it belonged to you. There is a kind of activity that is only agitation, running without advancing, labor without end, effort without judgment. Such men are praised because they appear useful, but they are not living. They are being used. Men think they live later when affairs are settled, later when peace arrives, later when freedom is granted. They do not see the trap. Affairs multiply. Peace recedes. Freedom is never handed over. Life does not wait for these conditions. It is consumed while they are being arranged. The future is a country where many promise to live, and none arrive. They pass their days in preparation, as if preparing were itself life. Then old age comes, and they are astonished, as if time had committed fraud. Ambition teaches postponement most effectively. It persuades men to endure the present as a sacrifice for a future reward. It trains them to call delay discipline and exhaustion virtue. Yet ambition has no end. Each success opens the door to a new demand. Thus men advance endlessly and arrive nowhere. They grow old climbing ladders, leaned against nothing. They are always almost secure, always almost satisfied, always almost free, and therefore never free. They do not notice that ambition does not merely take time. It teaches you to treat the present as worthless. It makes you an enemy of the only moment that is yours. Avoidance teaches the same lesson in softer tones. It calls fear caution and delay wisdom. It urges men to wait for certainty, as if certainty were a gift time eventually grants. Time grants nothing. It only removes options. The moment you are waiting for is already passing. The cautious man who will not act until everything is safe will die still arranging safety. He will not avoid danger. He will avoid life. Pleasure is blamed unjustly. Pleasure is brief and honest. It asks for moments and departs. It does not disguise itself as destiny. The true thieves of life wear serious faces, obligation without reflection, ceremony without meaning, work without judgment. These consume whole lives while claiming respect. Many men are not ruined by vice, but by what they call virtue, constant compliance, constant availability, constant attendance at what is not necessary, but merely expected. They become slaves to the schedule of others and call it duty. Most men do not live in the present. They dwell in memory or anticipation. The present is treated as a narrow bridge, crossed quickly and without attention. Yet this bridge is the only place life ever stands. To hurry across it is to miss life entirely. Some keep their minds chained to injuries long finished, rehearsing the past as if repetition could change it. Others live in imagined futures, tasting victories in advance, suffering failures in advance, and owning neither. Both refuse the only time that can be used. You fear death, but death is not what empties your days. Death only ends the counting. The true loss happens long before, when days are spent without intention. Death does not steal life. It reveals how little was used. This is why it terrifies those who delayed living. It interrupts their plans before they ever began. They believed life would begin when they were ready. Death arrives and shows them they were never ready because they were never willing. Do not imagine that wisdom demands haste. Haste belongs to panic, not understanding. The hurried man scatters himself. He touches many things and possesses none. The idle man lets time rot unused. Both are careless. Wisdom moves with measure. The wise man knows what deserves his hours and what does not. He refuses without anger and accepts without illusion. He understands that every hour given away is a piece of life surrendered. Therefore, he gives it deliberately or not at all. Now you ask not only for judgment, but for execution. How a man in ordinary life takes back his time and stops cooperating in his own loss. The answer is not a collection of tricks, but a change of rule within you. Your time will not be protected by wishing, but by discipline. You must treat time as a possession to be defended, not as a river that carries you whether you choose or not. The careless man says, "I was carried away." The wise man says, "I allowed it." That difference is the beginning of freedom. Begin with the gate of the day. Many men open their eyes and immediately give their mind away. They rise and at once invite the crowd into the house of their thoughts. Petitions, disputes, obligations, calculations, rumors, the noise of other men's affairs. Before they have spoken to themselves, they have become servants. They then wonder why the day feels like a chase. A day begun in surrender is lived in surrender. Claim the beginning. Let the first part of the day belong to your judgment. Not long, not elaborate, enough to establish sovereignty. A short time held firmly is worth more than long hours scattered. In that first quiet, ask a simple question. What, if done today, would make the day truly mine? Not what would impress others, not what would silence their demands, but what would align my life with reason. You will find that many of the things you rush to do not survive this question. They persist only because you never challenge them. They are like weeds that grow because the ground is neglected. Then learn to recognize the great instrument of theft, interruption. Interruption seems small, but it destroys the mind's continuity, and without continuity, there is no depth. A man who is interrupted constantly never enters his own work, never forms his own thought, never becomes fully present. He lives on the surface of himself. That is why he feels that life is short. He never descended into it. You do not need to become harsh to defend yourself. You need to become firm. There is a difference. Harshness is passion. Firmness is judgment. Harshness wastes time with anger. Firmness preserves time without noise. If every knock is answered as if it were a command, you have turned your life into a public street. The wise man does not do this. He decides when he will be available and when he will not. He does not apologize for protecting what cannot be replaced. This will disturb others. Accept it. The world benefits from your availability. It will not praise you for withdrawing. But your task is not to be praised. Your task is to live. Those who cannot endure your boundaries are confessing that they valued your usefulness more than your well-being. Their displeasure is not a verdict. It is a symptom. Now consider ambition again, because it is not easily defeated. Ambition makes you believe that the present is a mere instrument. It teaches you to sacrifice today for tomorrow, and it never allows you to arrive. The remedy is not to abandon all striving, but to set a limit that ambition cannot cross. Decide what enough is. Without this, you will not merely work, you will be worked. You will not possess your life. You will serve a hunger that grows by feeding. This is difficult because ambition also flatters you. It tells you that ceaseless striving is strength. But strength is not endless tension. Strength is the ability to choose tension when it is warranted and release it when it is not. The man who cannot stop is not strong. He is driven. He is carried forward by habit as a beast is by the yoke. What moves without judgment does not live. It is merely pushed along. Avoidance, too, must be named when it appears. Avoidance often wears the mask of careful planning. A man says he is waiting for the right conditions. Often, he is waiting for the absence of fear. That day will not come. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is obedience to reason despite fear. If you delay every necessary act until you feel untroubled, you will never act. Life will be spent preparing to live. This does not mean rashness. It means that once reason has concluded what must be done, action should follow. The mind that repeatedly disobeys its own judgment becomes weak. It becomes a ruler whose commands are mocked. Soon it stops commanding. Then you are ruled by the loudest impulse, the strongest appetite, the nearest demand. That is the condition of slavery. Now consider your diversions. Many men seek distraction not as rest, but as escape. They cannot endure silence because silence returns them to themselves, and they have not learned to keep company with their own mind. They cover the evening with noise lest silence accuse them. They call this leisure, though it is only a way of numbing the mind. Leisure is not the enemy. Unconscious leisure is. Rest chosen by reason restores. Rest used as flight weakens. You know which is which by what remains afterward. If you return to your duties, clearer, steadier, less scattered, you have rested. If you return more hungry, more restless, more unwilling to face yourself, you have escaped. Escapes accumulate. A life built on escape becomes narrow because it cannot withstand ordinary discomfort without fleeing. Such a man is always running, even when seated. Now I will speak of solitude, because it is where time is reclaimed most directly. Solitude is not emptiness, it is the place where you become yours. A man who is never alone never hears his own judgment. He lives in the echo of the crowd. He does what others expect, desires what others praise, fears what others fear. His life is public even when he is in private rooms because he carries the audience within him. Set aside a portion of time each day to be alone with your mind, not for dreaming, not for wandering, but for accounting. Ask how your time was spent. Ask what was worthy and what was merely loud. Ask where you surrendered and where you stood firm. This is not self-torment, it is governance. What is examined improves, what is ignored decays. The man who does not review his life lives it once, blindly. The man who reviews it lives it twice, once in action, once in understanding. Understanding refines the next day. Thus life becomes an upward movement, rather than a repetition of the same errors. Without reflection, years pile up without adding wisdom, like books stacked without being read. Do not demand perfection from yourself, for that is another form of postponement. Many ruin their lives not by vice, but by the fantasy of an ideal life that must be achieved before they begin to live. They wait to become different men before doing what a good man does. That is backwards. You become a good man by doing what a good man does, day by day, under imperfect conditions. Life is always imperfect. To refuse to live until it is perfect is to refuse to live at all. Now you may ask, if I take time for myself, am I not neglecting duties? Only those duties that were never truly yours. The wise man does not abandon duty. He purifies it. He distinguishes between what is necessary and what is merely expected. He keeps what serves character and discards what serves vanity. This is not selfishness, it is sanity. A man who gives himself to every claim ends as a man without self to give. There is a false humility in constant availability. Men think it makes them good. Often it makes them weak. They cannot refuse because they fear displeasing. They become exhausted, resentful, bitter. Then their very presence becomes poison to those they serve. True service requires strength. Strength requires boundaries. A man who wants to be useful must first be whole. Now consider the fear of death again, not as a terror, but as a measure. Men either turn the thought of death into spectacle or banish it altogether, though both arise from the same refusal to look steadily at life. Both are childish. The wise man uses it as a boundary that clarifies value. If time is finite, then trivialities are revealed as thieves. If life ends, then endless postponement is exposed as folly. This does not require panic, it requires honesty. Do not perform urgency. Do not speak as if every day must be a feast of intensity. That is another trap, a mirror of distraction. The wise man is steady. He does not rush because rushing scatters. He does not drift because drifting wastes. He lives deliberately, which is neither frantic nor idle. A day lived deliberately is not a day in which everything is finished. It is a day in which the mind was present and the hours were spent in alignment with reason. It may include hard work, it may include duty, it may include discomfort, but it is owned. The scattered man can work all day and still feel empty because he was absent. The wise man can face hardship and still feel complete because he was present. This is why some men, even when surrounded by wealth and power, live poorly, while others with modest means live richly. Wealth cannot buy possession of time if the mind is scattered. Power cannot create leisure if the mind is driven by ambition and fear. The richest man may be the most impoverished in time because he has never learned to refuse. He is surrounded by petitioners and flatterers and endless demands. He is praised, and thus he cannot withdraw without feeling diminished. He becomes a public resource. He dies admired and depleted. The wise man, whether rich or poor, retains the same inner rule. Time is life, and life must be governed. He does not allow the crowd to determine his use of hours. He does not seek applause as proof of existence. He measures his days by what they produced inwardly: steadier judgment, stronger character, clearer understanding, and the quiet satisfaction of having lived as himself rather than as an echo. Stop speaking as if time will be granted later. What you hold now is all you will ever hold. The rest is hope, and hope is careless with life. Replace hope with attention. Replace delay with decision. Replace the habit of surrender with the practice of ownership. I do not promise ease. Life governed by reason is not softer but firmer. You will offend those who profit from your availability. Accept this. If you belong to everyone, you belong to no one, least of all yourself. Your time will continue to pass. That is not within your control. What is within your control is whether it passes through you, empty or filled. Do not live as if your days were corridors leading elsewhere. Live as if they were rooms meant to be inhabited. This is not a teaching for heroes. It is a rule for sane men. Use your time as something finite, because it is. Guard it as something precious, because it cannot be replaced. If you do this, you will not accuse life of brevity. You will accuse yourself only of having learned, too late, what was always true.